Trust the cloud. Okay, here we go. I have Jeremy from AlphaVet's joining me, and he's got a wonderful history. He's one of those individuals that, a lot of times I'm interviewing people who are actually veterinarians or technicians. He does have relations with respect to that, but he's not a veterinarian. But I met him off the cuff at NYVet because I was always intrigued about what this wireless zoo thing was. And I'm going, what's this wireless zoo? And we went over and we chatted, and it turned out that not only do we have heritage in common, we don't look the same, but we're both from Canada, which defines Canada, but also that, a lot of things that we in the areas where we grew up and everything. So I know where he grew up, he knows where I grew up, and I think there's a commonality there. But Jeremy, thanks so much for being on the show.
No problem at all.
As always, I think our listening and viewing audience would love to hear the history of what you do. I guess we'll talk about the product a little bit just to give people a heads up. He's invented. He'll get into the details. This is like a 10-year commitment with him, but he's invented this product. It's a monitoring device, and it monitors vitals for our pets. And I see key uses for this in the future. I think it's going to change the veterinary landscape. But Jeremy, why don't we just talk about you? How did you even come around this?
Let's reverse time a bit.
Okay.
So we'll go back further than 10 years, development time. Back in Toronto, I used to work for a medical company that made neurodiagnostic equipment. So we made epilepsy monitoring, sleep monitoring, nerve conduction, interoperative monitoring equipment. I was in charge of implementing these systems all over North America, plus Europe and that. And I got a call from my brother, who's a vet, one afternoon, and he asked me, does any of your equipment monitor vital signs? Now, we're monitoring complex brain algorithms and activities, so ECG and stuff is pretty easy. And I'm like, dude, yeah, why? He goes, he's like, look, I had an incident at our vet practice where they had during the pre-med and pre-anesthesia, when they're like just at the start of anesthesia, when they're shaving and starting to put the leads on, this puppy that they're doing a spay on had irreparable brain damage.
Oh, yeah.
And so they had to put her down. Now, the thing is, he didn't want that to ever happen again, because there's got to be a way to be able to monitor them continuously, not just waiting for when they're under anesthesia to start putting the stuff on, because there's lots of periods of time where there's gaps. So I took some equipment from our company that I knew, like, that worked with some of his veterinary probes. Like, it's still the same thing. So took the equipment home and we hooked up them. Like every vet trying new equipment, their dogs are permanent shave spots and things. They're all out of that. We hooked up one of his dogs and he goes, oh, this is awesome. And I go, but this is geared for veterinarians. And he goes, I'm not for veterinarians. This is geared for humans, not for veterinarians. And I said, he said, well, what could we do? So to see, is there a way, because we were developing some wireless tech and some other things, is there a way that we could utilize our existing technology and make a product for the veterinary space? And my CEO was very patient. First time I wrote a business plan, he walked through the whole thing. He's very kind. And at the end, he said, the vet market's too small.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Compared to human medicine, yeah, sure, it's very small. And I am not an engineer in such to actually wire circuit boards or do that kind of stuff. So at the time I was like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this idea. So I shelved it.
Oh, okay. For how long? How long did you shelve it for?
Well, I've been in development for 10 years, but it shelved it for probably a few years until I went to Australia and did a double master's degree. And part of one of my courses was asking for some business ideas. So I dusted off this business plan and thought, oh, this is a cool idea again. Maybe I can actually have some people other than me vet it and build it up a bit. So we did it. We ended up winning a competition at the university. And then our university asked us to represent Australia and Thailand at the Royal Assassin competition. And we came third in that competition. And then I had real VCs asking me, okay, off the record, how real is this? And I said, it's in my head. They're like, you get it out of your head and you come back and see us, because this is like, the other ones are cool projects, but this is really interesting. So I went, okay, how do I actually do this? So I found, this is the long part of the journey, is finding different prototype companies to take my ideas. And it's really hard when you're trying to translate exactly what you're doing to companies with something that's never been done before.
Yeah.
So it's trying to convey, because they're like, send us some examples. I'm like, examples of what? Like, if there's examples, then the product isn't new. Like, what do you want me to do? So I sent a whole bunch of articles and I said, guys, if you run into a problem with your development, tell me, because I've got like a whole list of try this, try this, try this, try this. So I may not be able to build it myself, but I have some background in science of that to understand the principles, to know what ways we could go. Anyways, that first prototype took 2 years.
Wow.
That was a long process, and it still wasn't right. When I went, eventually, I had this done overseas in a country that has a lot of engineers. And when I went over there, the first time I saw the prototype in person, walking into the lab, first comment was, it's not going to work. And they're like, oh, no, it works. I'm like, it's not going to work on an animal. Oh, yeah. I'm like, have you tested it on an animal? No. Well, I can see from here, like, you've got the wrong sensor, it's not going to work. Anyways, I took that prototype, a friend of mine in Canada took it to a new level where we started being able to actually do comparison tests with my tech against the existing pulse oximetry at my brother's practice. So that started that process of actually building out the different prototypes and things like that.
Wow. And so right now, what can it measure?
It can measure heart rate, oxygen saturation, core temp, ambient temp, and then we're starting with body position, movement and that, but we're building more data on that set. Like, it's currently got gyros and things like that, and we're capturing a lot of data, but I'm not displaying it yet because I'd rather capture more data and do more algorithms and refine those later. So the whole idea with our product is, since it's a platform, people subscribe to it. So all our new improvements, they get. So all the developments I want to do come included, because I have a whole development plan. I don't want to end, like R&D never stops. A product never finishes. I have things I want to add into it. So when we add new stuff, whoever is in our platform gets those new features. Their product will never go out of date.
That's awesome. And you were telling me that if there is a issue with the actual product, instead of just sending it for repair, you just switch it out, right?
Yeah, I always hated the term, we'll send you a loaner, and then you send us the equipment back and we'll fix it, then we'll send you back and you send our loaner back. No, it should be less fiddling for vets, more practicing. Practice what you're doing. The tech stuff, let us deal with it, because that's not your area. Why should we aggravate you with stuff and things like that? And so it's exactly, so we'll replace the equipment.
And talk to me about the wireless component, because you did show me. I think you showed me, or one of your sales reps showed me the video of how many did you have monitoring at once with no
30,
lag?
About 30, yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting when you talk about wireless. I've seen I love how people sometimes use the term wireless. So where the product itself is wireless, but it's connected to the animal with wires, and that's not what I believe is wireless. So our product is truly wireless. It sits, two devices sitting comfortably on the animal without connection. They're connected via Bluetooth to each other and then send via Wi-Fi, so that the animal has free range of motion without having any problems connected to any wires and things like that.
So, well, and let's talk about that. So this is the probe itself actually connects to the tail.
That's
and
right.
Right now, I know I'm getting some people's ears are red, especially those people who are talking about really small critters. But I think you have answers for that because we talked about that. But just for the audience's sake, describe how it is attached and how the system works that way. You talk about a Bluetooth connection and then Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so it's a small product that sits underneath the tail, near the base of the anus, underneath that pocket of blood vessels, right underneath where it's the thinner fur. Now, not all tails have a thin patch of fur like huskies and Samoyeds and that. So we recommend shaving, but it uses a transflectance type sensor array, a very complex transflectance sensor that we had developed in Switzerland that uses more than just red and infrared light to measure heart rate, oxygen sat, and core. And the thing about core, and people are going to go, how are you measuring core temperature from surface? We're not actually taking a surface temperature. You know, like those firemen who use those little handheld things and they hold them up to a wall and they look at a fire and they can see the heat behind. The chip is as sensitive as that. It actually reads infrared and it goes deep into the tail. So if the tail lost circulation, yes, it will cool, but 95% of the time, it's the same core temperature as the rest of the body because it's pretty close to, but it's not the end of the tail and that sort of stuff. So, so it measures all those, and what we do is it measures in the tail, and then that data is sent to the collar via Bluetooth, and then there's some pre-processing done in the collar, so not all this mess of data is sent directly to the cloud. Some pre-processing, and then that is pushed to the cloud. So it's a cleaner set of data set that's sent to the cloud.
And then me as a practicing veterinarian, I'm going to have a monitor, right? And I'm going to be seeing these vitals, and I can place that monitor everywhere. And I think the big thing for me, and we discussed this, was that, I'm sad your brother had a pre-operative issue, but to me, it's post-operative. Right now we're measuring temp and respiration every 10 minutes post-surgery. But wouldn't it be great if we could just have this live feed going and seeing what's going on that way?
And the question is, the vets we were talking at London and stuff, they're like, in our smaller practices, we know what the protocol is. We just don't have the staff to follow up on that and stuff. And even some of the vets in Singapore were saying, there's times when we're so busy, we don't notice someone's not in there for 3 hours and the animal's passed away and things. And I think that is a shame. Like, it's not their fault. And I understand they're understaffed. Like, it's just the protocols. What I think is, we've had monitoring technology in human health for 10 years, 15 years, and there isn't a reason why we can't do the same. That's what I want to do, is why animals shouldn't have the same thing, but not human medical equipment just geared for vets, actually built veterinary specific equipment that's built to be worn on animals that is not designed for humans, that just happens to be fit and things like that. That I think is ridiculous.
And that's a great concept, and we always talk about that a lot of times from the drug world. Most of our drugs do come from the human world, and then they're regulated for. But we do have a few drugs that are actually designed for pets, and I think most vets are jumping in joy when that sort of situation happens.
Oh yeah.
So to get equipment, it's a general belief in the vet world that every piece of medical equipment we get originally started in the human world, and it's just been calibrated, right? They say calibrated, right, from pumps and everything.
Or smaller practices who don't have the budget are buying secondhand equipment, because the reality is that's their options. So that's the other thing that we want to do with our package and our platform as a monthly license and a utilization fee. Everyone from the single practice up to the group hospital groups and stuff can afford it, because our goal, my wife and I started this company. We have 2 bulldogs, so brachycephalic, quote unquote high risk, but they're pretty healthy. Although my brother calls them broken breeds, and those are the kind of breeds that puts his kids through college. But the bottom line is, we wanted to make something that we knew that we would put on our own animals, and then if they have to go to the vet, they're being looked after and being monitored 100%, because there's no reason they shouldn't be monitored.